Egypt to insist on closing the Rafah crossing. Somebody was saying earlier, well, Egypt is turning a blind eye to some of the tunnels that the Palestinians are opening. Would you rather have a tunnel between your home and the shop? Between your home and the school? Between your home and the hospital? And then there is the threat of Israeli jets to bomb the tunnel while people are moving things secretly inside. Would you rather, instead of going to the shopping mall to buy at ease and with comfort and at moderate prices, that you buy things that come through the tunnel with a price that is hiked by 30 or 40 times? Because on the other side, there are corrupt Egyptian officers who get bribed by the thousands in order to allow these essential goods to come through the tunnels. It is the corruption in Egypt that is maintaining the closure of the Rafah crossing and instead keeping a blind eye with regard to some of the tunnels, because they do make a lot of money out of this themselves. We have an Arab country called Egypt, and we have a Gaza Strip that the Israelis left unilaterally. Why cannot the Rafah crossing become another border point like every other border point between Egypt and its neighboring countries? There is here collaboration with the Zionist project, very clear collaboration with the Zionist project, simply because the Egyptian government is afraid of the success of a Hamas project in Gaza, which is an Islamic project, because that would serve the best interest of the Muslim Brotherhood of Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun in Egypt. We know that the Israelis are the enemies. It is not a surprise that the Israelis are punishing the Palestinians collectively. It is not a surprise that the Israelis are maintaining the closures of their own crossings. But it is unacceptable, it is immoral and unethical, and it is a ridda for an Arab regime or an Arab country to impose selectively punishing the Palestinians inside Gaza. And we have to speak against it, and we have to encourage people to do something about it. And one of the things that can be done about it is to defy all these international players that keep maintaining hurdles in our way. If George Galloway could take a caravan from Scotland to Rafah, why can't the Muslims in Malaysia and Indonesia take a caravan somehow, by sea, by air, by whatever means, and go to Gaza? Why can't the Arabs do what George Galloway has done from the United Kingdom? We need to have the courage to do something. We say we want to die for the sake of Allah. Okay, let some of us die for the sake of Allah, trying to take flour and sugar to those who are under siege. Something needs to be done. We have to stop just talking about it, and we need to start doing something about it. It's about time we do something about it. Now, I assure you that your brothers and sisters are not going to give up under any circumstance. You've seen the war on them. You've seen the sanctions and what they've done. You've seen the assassinations, the imprisonments, all sorts of collective punishments. And they are still defiant, and they are unwilling to compromise or concede. Don't they deserve real support that goes beyond mere verbal sympathy? Sympathy is one thing, but doing something in order to show that sympathy is something else altogether. Finally, we need to initiate or join or participate in, depending on which stage you come into this, a global movement against Zionism. The apartheid regime in South Africa eventually came down because of a number of factors, one of which was total rejection by the majority of the black population of South Africa. One of which was armed resistance. And in as much as armed resistance was legitimate in South Africa, armed resistance is legitimate against Israel by the Palestinians. And we have to defend armed resistance. if the Palestinians are given no option. If you take my house, if you take my land, if you throw me out, if you threaten my children, should I just remain silent and wait for the last slap on my face? No, by Allah, I will slap you back, and I will kick you back, and I will fire back. And this is a legitimate right that is guaranteed by every convention and every divine message. But in addition to armed struggle, that is to which the Palestinians are entitled until their rights are recognized, there is also political and media struggle by their supporters around the world. And this is what happened in South Africa. A global movement against apartheid. And I remember, as a young student in the United Kingdom, that throughout the 70s and the 80s, there was a daily vigil in Trafalgar Square in front of the South African embassy. People who were part of that global movement maintained their efforts, maintained their activity until apartheid came to an end. They participated in demonstrations. They lobbied politicians, nationally and internationally. They published material. They told the story to the world. They made films until the story of apartheid and what it did to the South African people became a household name, became a local issue in every country. And Palestine must be turned into a local issue in every country. The American people, the average American person doesn't know anything about Palestine. No wonder that whatever his government does to us, they don't care what it's doing. But the American people are very kind people. Once they know, once they understand, they start worrying about it. This is the problem with all these liberal democracies. Between me and you, not really very corrupt democracies they've proven to be. But these liberal democracies feel comfortable with their governments doing foreign relations. So they don't question them. They go to war. They destroy other people's civilizations. And so long as the population is taxed lightly, they have good jobs, they have nothing to complain locally, health service, okay, no problem. They start worrying when there is an economic disaster. They start worrying when their children who are sent to fight in Iraq or Afghanistan, and prior to that in Vietnam and other places, return in coffins. They start worrying. We need to do something in order to enlighten them about what's going on, communicate with the world. And today we have means of communication that were not in existence during the time that the anti-apartheid movement was in action. You can use the internet, you can use satellite, you can use mobile phones. Travel today is so easy. Many of us travel to various destinations, to different destinations in a year, or receive travelers from different destinations in a year. We need to communicate with the world in order to convey to them the message about the Palestinian cause, as we understand it, as we clearly understand it. An anti-Zionism movement is something that many people are thinking about. It requires an initiative. It needs to be started somewhere. And we need to link up around the world. We link up with the Chinese, with the Russians, with the Americans, with the Latin Americans, with the Asians, with the Arabs. Link up in a global movement that collectively may bring about a change in the world. You know, we always talk about our duties and responsibilities. But once we finish talking, we become preoccupied with our own affairs, and it's like a dream. I urge you, when you go back to bed, you go back home and you go to, when you put your head on your pillow, ask a question to yourself. What am I doing about Palestine? What am I doing about Al-Aqsa? What is it that is within my means, but I have failed to do so far? I know we have different capacities. I know we have different talents and different abilities. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave every single one of us what might enable him or her to contribute. And you need to dig deep to find out what is it you can do.